But first, and this will shock the sum total of absolutely no one, but our governments have failed us successively time after terrifying time. The most critical responsibility of any government is the safety of its people, full stop. There's no point having cost of living sorted, enough housing and shelter and social cohesion if we are dead or under attack. I've said this, I've written it in my News Limited column today, and too often in recent times to keep count. So yes, it is Groundhog Day, but now I'm no longer just concerned. I'm angry. I'm angry that we're in this position as a country. I'm angry that again this week we are told that we are losing Defence Force personnel at alarming rates and not recruiting anywhere near enough. I'm angry that this workforce crisis means that we can't man our 8 workhorse frigates, in fact, only half of them. I'm angry that our drone capability is next to zero. I'm angry that people who understood the threat and situation were ignored over and over and over. And I'm angry that the person at the top of that list was my dad, retired Major General and Senator Jim Molan. I'm angry he was treated appallingly by those who should have listened, reflected and acted. I'm angry that it's too late for his wisdom, his passion and commitment to this country to make more of a difference moving forward. I'm angry that we don't have him anymore as we face the greatest threat to our safety and stability in nearly 80 years. Dad was the most experienced fighting general we had in this country. Nobody else even came close. He had run wars. He was the Chief of Operations for the United States and coalition forces in Iraq. He was part of an inner circle of US generals and civilian leadership at the helm of the most powerful and influential nation on earth. He should have been our greatest resource, yet he was, for the most part, cruelly ignored. I'm not saying that Dad was perfect, nor am I saying that we should have blindly followed or acted upon everything he said, but those in power should have, at the very least, listened. Dad became borderline obsessed with developing a national security strategy at the back end of his life, and we lost him in January last year, because he knew how much it mattered and how inadequately prepared we were for what was to come. And notably, this was before the latest development in the war in the Middle East. The global situation is a lot more precarious now, as we know. He begged government to be given the opportunity to develop an NSS, much to the annoyance of many of those around him who didn't think it mattered. He saw firsthand what evil looked like and how it acted, and he was charged with trying to defeat it for the coalition forces. He was aware that not only did we not have enough weaponry to repel or deter threat as a standalone nation, but that even if we did, our supply of fuel was so pitifully compromised that we wouldn't be able to effectively utilise an arsenal of any size. Dad is this country's most individually voted for politician ever, in history, ever. The people of this country had listened to him talk about defence and national security for years, and they believed and they trusted him. He cut through. He took complex issues and he made them easy to understand. He was able to explain to everyday Australians why it mattered, and matter it does. Pity some of his colleagues in Parliament didn't feel the same. I used to get so upset when he'd tell me some of the ways he was treated during his time in Parliament. All he ever wanted to do was serve this nation. He did it in uniform for nearly 40 years, but most of his attempts to do it in a suit were stifled. Dad had a healthy ego, absolutely, but what drove him was a love for this country like no other, and a fierce determination to do whatever he could to keep it safe. If his pleas for a national security strategy had been taken seriously, then we'd be far better off than we are now, miles ahead even. And this is not bitterness, by the way, I promise you it's not. This is genuine disdain that our country has gone backwards as we hit peak panic. America is our greatest ally, but have you read the international headlines lately? Joe Biden is one of the worst US presidents in history when it comes to foreign policy. He's also in steep cognitive decline and was last week described as an elderly man with a bad memory in a special counsel report. The enemies of the free world have already shown complete disdain for his leadership, and they are champing at the bit of a prospect of another Biden term. If Donald Trump wins power, then yes, America will be strengthened in some respects, but will Australia still be able to ride their coattails? As we all know, Trump is notoriously an isolationist, and he believes, rightly so, I think, that other countries need to pull their weight and not rely totally on the US. He's serious too, having just confirmed that he'd encourage Russia to attack NATO allies who weren't doing any of the heavy lifting. That's a terrifying prospect itself, but what it says to us as a nation about a Trump presidency is even scarier. We were the greatest lifters on earth when our safety and prosperity were threatened last century. And this government developing a comprehensive, coordinated and contemporary national security strategy would go a hell of a long way towards ensuring that we shall be again when, not if, we are next put to the test.